General Electric, one of the largest companies on Earth, was thinking about very different kinds of goals when executives contacted an organizational psychologist from the University of Southern California and asked him for help figuring out why some factories had gone awry. It was the late 1980s, and GE was the second most valuable company in America, just behind Exxon. GE manufactured everything from light bulbs to jet engines, refrigerators to railway cars, and through its ownership of NBC, was in millions of homes with iconic shows such as Cheers, The Cosby Show, and LA Law. The company employed over 220,000 people, more than many U.S. cities had residents. One of the reasons GE was so successful, its executives boasted, was that it was so good at choosing goals. In the 1940s, GE had formalized a corporate goal-setting system that would eventually become a model around the world. By the 1960s, every GE employee was required to write out their objectives for the year in a letter to their manager. Simply put, historians at Harvard Business School wrote in 2011, the manager's letter required a job holder to write a letter to his or her superior indicating what the goals for the next time frame were, how the goals would be met, and what standards were to be expected. When the superior accepted this letter, usually after editing and discussion, it became the work contract. By the 1980s, this system had evolved into a system of so-called SMART goals that every division and manager were expected to describe each quarter. These objectives had to be specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and based on a timeline. In other words, they had to be provably within reach and described in a way that suggested a concrete plan. If a goal didn't meet the SMART criteria, a manager had to resubmit a memo detailing their aims again and again until it was approved by upper management. It was about getting concrete, said William Conante, who retired as GE's head of human resources in 2007. Your manager was always saying, "What's the specifics? What's the timeline? Prove to me this is realistic." The system worked because by the time we were done, you knew pretty clearly how things were going to unfold. The SMART mindset spread throughout GE's culture. There were SMART charts to help mid-level managers describe monthly goals, and SMART worksheets to turn personal objectives into action plans. And the company's belief that SMART goals would work was rooted in good science. In the 1970s, a pair of university psychologists named Edwin Locke and Gary Latham had helped develop the SMART criteria through experiments scrutinizing the best way to set goals. In one experiment Latham conducted in 1975, researchers approached 45 of the most experienced and productive typists at a large corporation and measured how fast they produced text. The typists knew they were among the best in the company, but they had never measured how quickly they typed. The researchers found that, on average, each worker produced 95 lines of typewritten output per hour. Then the researchers gave each typist a specific goal based on their previous performance, such as 98 lines per hour, and showed the typists a system for easily measuring their hourly output. The researchers also had a conversation with each typist to make sure the goal was realistic, and to adjust it if necessary, and they discussed what changes were required to make the objective achievable. They came up with a timeline for each person. The conversation didn't take long, say 15 minutes per person, but afterward each typist knew exactly what to do and how to measure success. Each of them, put differently, had a SMART goal. Some of the researchers' colleagues said they didn't believe this would have an impact on the typist's performance. All the typists were professionals with years of experience. A 15-minute conversation should not make much of a difference to someone who has been typing 8 hours a day for 2 decades. But 1 week later, when the researchers measured typing speeds again, they found that the workers on average were completing 103 lines per hour. Another week later, 112 lines. Most of the typists had blown past the goals they had set. The researchers worried the workers were just trying to impress them, so they came back again 3 months later and quietly measured everyone's performance once more. They were typing just as fast, and some had gotten even faster. Some 400 laboratory and field studies show that specific, high goals lead to a higher level of task performance than do easy goals or vague, abstract goals, such as the exhortation to do one's best, Locke and Latham wrote in 2006 in a review of goal-setting studies. In particular, objectives like SMART goals often unlock a potential that people don't even realize they possess. The reason, in part, is because goal-setting processes like the SMART system force people to translate vague aspirations into concrete plans. The process of making a goal specific and proving it is achievable involves figuring out the steps it requires, or shifting that goal slightly if your initial aims turn out to be unrealistic. Coming up with a timeline and a way to measure success forces a discipline onto the process that good intentions can't match. Making yourself break a goal into its SMART components is the difference between hoping something comes true and figuring out how to do it, Latham told me. GE's chief executive Jack Welch had long claimed that his insistence on SMART goals was one of the reasons the company's stock had more than tripled in 8 years. But forcing people to detail their goals with such specificity didn't mean every part of the company ran smoothly. Some divisions, despite setting SMART goals, never seemed to excel, or they would flip-flop from profits to losses, or seem to be growing and then suddenly fall apart. In the late 1980s, executives became particularly concerned about 2 divisions, a nuclear equipment manufacturer in North Carolina and a jet engine plant in Massachusetts, that had once been among the company's top performers, but were now limping along. Executives initially suspected those divisions simply needed better defined objectives. So factory managers were asked to prepare memo after memo describing increasingly specific goals. Their responses were detailed, precise, and realistic. They met every SMART criterion. And yet, profits still fell. So a group of GE's internal consultants visited the nuclear factory in Wilmington, North Carolina. They asked employees to walk them through their weekly, monthly, and quarterly goals. One plant executive explained that his SMART objective was to prevent anti-nuclear protesters from harassing workers as they entered the plant, because he felt it eroded morale. He had come up with a SMART plan to build a fence. The goal was specific and reasonable. The fence would be 50 feet long and 9 feet high. It had a timeline, it would be done by February, and it was achievable. They had a contractor ready to go. Next, the consultants went to the jet engine factory in Lynn, Massachusetts, and interviewed, among others, an administrative assistant who told them her SMART goal was ordering the factory's office supplies. She showed them a SMART chart with specific aims, order staplers, pens, and desk calendars that were measurable by June, as well as achievable, realistic, and had a timeline. Place order on February 1st, request update on March 15th. Many of the SMART goals the consultants found inside the factories were just as detailed and just as trivial. Workers spent hours making sure their objectives satisfied every SMART criterion, but spent much less time making sure the goals were worth pursuing in the first place. The nuclear factory security guards had written extensive memos on the goal of theft prevention and had come up with a plan that basically consisted of searching everyone's bags every time they entered or exited the plant, which caused huge delays, said Brian Butler, one of the consultants. It might have stopped thefts, but it also destroyed the factory's productivity because everyone started leaving earlier each day so they could get home at a decent hour. Even the plant's senior executives, the consultants found, had fallen prey to an obsession with achievable but inconsequential goals, and were focused on unimportant short-term objectives rather than more ambitious plans. When the consultants asked employees how they felt about GE's emphasis on SMART goals, they expected to hear complaints about the onerous bureaucracy. They anticipated people would say they wanted to think bigger, but were hamstrung by the incessant SMART demands. Instead, employees said they loved the SMART system. The administrative assistant who ordered office supplies said fulfilling those goals gave her a real sense of accomplishment. Sometimes, she said, she would write a SMART memo for a task she had already completed and then put it into her done folder. It made her feel so good. Researchers who have studied SMART goals and other structured methods of choosing objectives say this isn't unusual. Such systems, though useful, can sometimes trigger our need for closure in counterproductive ways. Aims such as SMART goals can cause a person to have tunnel vision, to focus more on expanding effort to get immediate results, Locke and Latham wrote in 1990. Experiments have shown that people with SMART goals are more likely to seize on the easiest tasks, to become obsessed with finishing projects, and to freeze on priorities once a goal has been set. You get into this mindset where crossing things off your to-do list becomes more important than asking yourself if you're doing the right things, said Latham. GE's executives weren't sure how to help the nuclear and jet engine factories. So in 1989, they asked a professor named Steve Kerr, the dean of faculty at the University of Southern California Business School, for help. Kerr was an expert in the psychology of goal setting, and he began by interviewing employees inside the nuclear factory. A lot of these people were really demoralized, he said. They had gone into nuclear energy because they wanted to change the world. Then 3 Mile Island and Chernobyl happened, and the industry was getting protested every day and completely brutalized in the press. Setting short-term goals and achieving them, the plant's workers and executives told Kerr, was one of the few things they could feel good about at work. The only way to improve performance at the nuclear factory, Kerr thought, was to find a way to shake people out of their focus on short-term objectives. GE had recently started a series of meetings among top executives called workouts that were designed to encourage people to think about bigger ambitions and more long-term plans. Kerr helped expand those meetings to factories rank and file. The rules at workouts were simple. Employees could suggest any goal they thought GE ought to be pursuing. There were no SMART charts or memos. The concept was that nothing was off limits, Kerr told me. Managers had to approve or deny each suggestion quickly, often right away. And we wanted to make it easy to say yes, said Kerr. We thought if we could get people to identify the ambition first, and then figure out the plan afterward, it would encourage bigger thinking. If an idea seemed half-baked, Kerr said, a manager should say yes, because even if the proposal is no better than what you're doing now, with the group's energy behind it, the plan will turn out great. Only after a goal was approved would everyone begin the formal process of determining how to make it realistic and achievable and all the other SMART criteria. At a workout inside the engine factory in Massachusetts, one worker told his bosses they were making a mistake by outsourcing construction of protective shields for their grinding machines. The factory could make them in-house for half the cost, he said. Then he unfurled a piece of butcher paper covered with scribbled blueprints. There was nothing smart about the man's proposal. It was unclear if it was realistic or achievable, or what measurements to apply. But when the factory's top manager looked at the butcher paper, he said, I guess we'll try it out. 4 months later, after the blueprints had been professionally redrawn and the plan transformed into a series of SMART goals, the first prototype was installed. It cost $16,000, more than 80% less than the outsourced bid. The factory saved $200,000 that year on ideas proposed at the workout. Everybody gets caught up in this tremendous rush of adrenaline, a team leader at the plant, Bill DeMeo, said. The ideas that people come up with are so encouraging, it's unbelievable. These people get psyched. All their ideas are fair game. Then Kerr helped take the workout program company-wide. By 1994, every GE employee within GE had participated in at least one workout. As profits and productivity rose, executives at other companies began imitating the workout system inside their own firms. By 1995, there were hundreds of companies conducting workouts. Kerr joined GE full-time in 1994 and eventually became the company's chief learning officer. The workouts were successful because they balanced the psychological influence of immediate goals with the freedom to think about bigger things, said Kerr. That's critical. People respond to the conditions around them. If you're being constantly told to focus on achievable results, you're only going to think of achievable goals. You're not going to dream big.